Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're sinking our teeth into one of the most talked about innovations in the food world, lab-grown meat. Is it a scientific marvel, a sustainable savior, or just a pipe dream? Let's find out. So, what exactly is lab-grown meat? Also known as cultivated meat, cell-based meat, or even slaughter-free meat, it's genuine animal protein, muscle and fat cells, grown directly from a small sample of animal cells, without the need to raise and slaughter an entire animal. Think of it like this: you take a tiny biopsy from a living animal, harmlessly, by the way, then you feed these cells nutrients, just like they'd get inside an animal. In a controlled environment, these cells multiply and differentiate, eventually forming muscle and fat tissue. Voila! Real meat, without the farm. But why bother? What's wrong with the way we've always done it? Well, as much as many of us love a good steak or a juicy burger, traditional livestock farming comes with a hefty environmental price tag. Land use: billions of acres are used for grazing and growing feed crops. This leads to deforestation and habitat loss. Water consumption: producing just 1 pound of beef can require thousands of gallons of water. Greenhouse gas emissions: livestock, particularly cattle, are major contributors to methane, a potent greenhouse gas, and nitrous oxide from manure. The UN's FAO estimates livestock contributes about 14.5% of all human-induced greenhouse gas emissions. That's more than all cars, planes, and ships combined. Antibiotic use: the heavy reliance on antibiotics in industrial farming contributes to antibiotic resistance, a global health crisis. Animal welfare: for many, the ethical concerns around factory farming are a significant issue. The demand for meat is projected to skyrocket by 70% by 2050 as the global population grows and incomes rise. Our current system simply isn't sustainable in the long run. This is where lab-grown meat steps in, promising to mitigate many of these issues. Reduced land and water: cultivated meat facilities are far more efficient, potentially using significantly less land and water compared to traditional livestock. Early studies suggest up to 99% less land and 96% less water. Lower emissions: depending on the energy source used for cultivation, greenhouse gas emissions could be drastically reduced. Estimates range from 78% to 96% lower than conventional beef. No antibiotics: potentially, because it's a sterile, controlled environment, there's no need for prophylactic antibiotics, addressing a major public health concern. Animal welfare: no slaughter, no suffering. For ethical consumers, this is a game changer. Food security: it offers the potential for localized meat production, reducing reliance on complex global supply chains and making protein more accessible. Food safety: a controlled environment can also minimize risks of foodborne illnesses like Salmonella or E. coli. It sounds almost too good to be true, right? Let's break down the basic steps involved in making lab-grown meat. Cell sourcing: it starts with a small, harmless biopsy from a live animal, a cow, chicken, pig, or even fish. These are called starter cells, or master cell banks. Cell proliferation: these cells are then placed in a cultivator, or bioreactor, which is like a giant stainless steel tank. Here, they're bathed in a nutrient-rich, growth medium, essentially a special food for cells, containing amino acids, vitamins, and sugars. The cells rapidly multiply. Differentiation and scaffolding: once there are enough cells, the conditions are adjusted to encourage them to differentiate into muscle and fat cells. For structured meats like steak, a scaffold might be used, a kind of edible framework that helps the cells grow into the desired shape and texture. Harvesting and forming: once the cells have grown and matured into tissue, they are harvested and can then be formed into familiar products: patties, nuggets, meatballs, or even larger cuts. It's essentially brewing meat, much like brewing beer, but with animal cells instead of yeast. Of course, it's not without its hurdles and critics. Cost. Currently, lab-grown meat is expensive to produce. While prices have plummeted from initial prototypes costing hundreds of thousands of dollars for a single patty, it's still far from competitive with traditional meat. Scaling up production is key to bringing costs down. Scalability. Moving from small lab production to industrial scale requires massive bioreactors and efficient processes, which is a huge engineering challenge. Energy consumption. While it uses less land and water, the energy required to power bioreactors and maintain sterile conditions is significant. If this energy comes from fossil fuels, the sustainability argument weakens. The key here is using renewable energy. Growth medium. Historically, the growth medium often included fetal bovine serum, FBS, which defeats the animal-free purpose. Companies are rapidly developing and using plant-based, serum-free growth media. Taste, texture and consumer acceptance. This is huge. Can it truly replicate the complex taste and texture of conventional meat? And will consumers accept it? Terms like frankenmeat or synthetic can be off-putting. Education and positive branding are crucial. Regulatory hurdles. Governments worldwide are grappling with how to regulate this new food product, how to label,